Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to 5 reasons why you do not want to fight the US military. Now, these types of videos I always enjoy because, thankfully the US and the UK have a very, very close relationship. We've got very similar cultures, shared history and things like that. And obviously the US military is the most funded, probably the best military on the planet. I think in terms of military aircraft, I think you guys have got the most aircraft carriers. You've got the largest aircraft carriers. I think the Ford class carriers. You've got well over 5,000 aircraft, well over 5,000 probably. Tanks, all that kind of stuff. But I want to get into the actual numbers and some of the actual weapons that you guys have at your disposal that the majority of the public outside of the military would never know about. In this video, I'm sure it's going to go into those kind of details. I love that kind of stuff. This is going to be fun. Let's do it. Let's go.
Want to fight America? 5 reasons the US military
Man, I love this plane. It is just ridiculous.
will make you dead.
F-35. What is that thing?
The United States is the most formidable military power the world has ever seen. Arguably, since the end of the Cold War, America has enjoyed a level of dominance unparalleled in history. Neither Rome nor the British Empire enjoyed such a level of superiority over rival powers. While the American military is not the largest on Earth, it is by far the best trained.
Really? So I'm guessing who are they referring to then? China? Isn't it the largest? Maybe in terms of manpower, probably not.
And best equipped force on the planet, putting rivals like Russia and China to shame. But it took generations to develop America's military into the world-beating force it is today.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the end of the Civil War that the US fielded armies that could challenge European militaries on the battlefield. From then onwards, it took 2 world wars before the US military finally established itself as the most dominant force on Earth.
Oh, look at that bad boy. So cool. Isn't it mad that this plane was designed, like 40 years ago, maybe even more, and it still looks just insane. Like, it's the best looking fighter jet around, I'd say.
Here are 5 of all-time deadliest innovations in America's arsenal. Number 1, the Gatling gun.
Good God, look at that thing.
First fielded during the American Civil War, which to this day is the deadliest war in US history with over 600,000 military dead, the Gatling gun was one of the first rapid-fire weapons in history. Consisting of multiple barrels rotating around a central axis, the weapon, invented by Richard Gatling, solved the problem of providing sustained fires for the first time in the gunpowder age. Initially, the U.S. Army, due to the service's conservative nature, was reluctant to adopt Gatling's invention. After Gatling had improved on his initial 6-barrel design that fired 350 rounds per minute, the Army did eventually adopt the new weapon.
When this thing was first invented, it probably completely changed the game. You could have one person basically engaging multiple opposition. Change the game.
It was first used in 1864 at the Battle of Petersburg in Virginia. After the end of the Civil War, the Army used a 10-barrel Gatling gun that could fire 400 rounds per minute during various conflicts with the Native American population in what are now the Western states. The Maxim machine gun eventually replaced the Gatling gun, but the crude hand-driven weapon heralded what was to come. During the brutal trench warfare of World War I, untold thousands fell to machine gun fire.
Just deadly. So deadly. This is insane because each yellow or each glowing round, that's a tracer, right? And I think there's 1 tracer to every 5 normal round. So in between each one, there's 5 other ones or something like that.
Number 2, the atomic bomb.
Look at the size of that thing.
The United States developed the atomic bomb during the height of the Second World War under a program called the Manhattan Project. The project kicked off in 1939 when the Advisory Committee on Uranium told President Franklin Roosevelt that the element would provide a possible source of bombs with a destructiveness vastly greater than anything now known. Work on the bomb went into overdrive after the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, when the United States formally entered World War II against Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. Much of the urgency was driven by the belief that the Nazis were working on their own version of the bomb. The project eventually succeeded and yielded the two-weapon design.
God, did you see that shockwave? Just
And yielded the two-weapon designs that ultimately brought the Second World War to an end. On August 6, 1945, a lone B-29 bomber called Enola Gay, commanded by Colonel Paul Tibbets, destroyed the city of Hiroshima with a single 15-kiloton nuclear weapon called Little Boy. A few days later, a 21-kiloton yield weapon called Fat Man destroyed Nagasaki on August 9, 1945.
Leveled, man. Leveled.
Seeing the writing on the wall, the Emperor of Japan ordered an unconditional surrender. The world would never be the same with the dawn of the atomic era.
You gotta think, what they dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki compared to what we have now, just light years apart. Light years. Like, this is why we really don't need a World War III.
Number 3. Precision-guided weapons. Since the 1970s, one of America's decisive advantages in war has been the ability to hit targets precisely. During most of history, war has basically been about throwing a huge volume of fire at a target with a small chance of actually hitting anything. The introduction of precision-guided weapons changed all that. For example, when the 8th Air Force launched a massive air raid to knock out German ball-bearing plants in 1943, it launched around 400 B-17 bombers to hit the targets. Most of the bombs, dropped at appalling cost and meant an aircraft, didn't even come close to hitting their targets. The pattern has repeated itself over and over, and entire squadrons would be launched to hit a single target.
Crazy.
More often than not, they wouldn't hit a thing.
Wow, now you can have one guy in the air and he'll probably hit it, with ease.
That all changed towards the end of the Vietnam War. In 1972, laser-guided bombs allowed U.S. Air Force and U.S. Navy jets to hit targets precisely. Instead of dozens of jets trying to strike a single target in vain, one jet could hit multiple targets during a sortie. While in 1972, there were only a handful of precision-guided weapons available, in 2015, almost all weapons dropped from American warplanes are precision-guided.
So much more deadly.
Precision-guided weapons have given U.S. forces the edge for the past 40 years, but it's an advantage that is starting to slip as other nations develop their own equivalent weapons.
Of course. I suppose this is why military spend is probably so high for the US, because you guys have constantly got to be aware of what rival powers, their technology, and also you guys have got to try and improve on that so you can constantly maintain superiority. So it's just a constant one-upmanship, and that obviously costs money, research and stuff like that. I just wish we could all get along and there wasn't any need for this stuff, but that's a fantasy, I think.
Number 4. Stealth.
Great shot. Fantastic shot.
With the development of ever more capable Soviet surface-to-air weapons during the 1960s and 1970s, the United States Air Force had to come up with a solution to defeat the ever-increasing threat. The answer was stealth technology, which would reduce an aircraft's radar cross-section and infrared signature. Ironically, it was a Soviet scientist by the name of Pyotr Ufimtsev who first discovered the equations to develop a low-radar, cross-section aircraft.
Interesting.
Ufimtsev's work eventually came to the attention of Lockheed engineer Dennis Overholzer, who then developed the configuration for the first stealth aircraft, which he called the Hopeless Diamond. The hopeless diamond eventually
Wow, look at the shape of this thing. It's so geometric, like so jagged. Very cool.
evolved into the Lockheed F-117, the world's first operational stealth aircraft in 1981. From that initial starting point, American stealth aircraft development took off in new directions. The B-2, F-22, F-35, and pretty much every other American stealth aircraft originates from those early efforts to defeat the
What is that? What are these?
Soviet air defense system.
Those things look amazing.
The net result today is the nearly unstoppable juggernaut that is the U.S. Air Force.
Each of those planes cost like 150 million or something, right? Pretty penny.
Number 5. Drones. When Abe Karem first developed the NAT, which eventually evolved in the General Atomics MQ-1 Predator, he probably could not have imagined his invention would herald a revolution in the ways wars are fought. Instead of risking lives over the battlefield, American forces can fight remotely with these new systems. While initially considered a passing fad, the past 15 years have shown that unmanned aircraft are here to stay, and war will never be the same.
Honestly, I think at some point, like, you're probably going to completely replace fighter pilots, aren't you? Like, when AI gets so good that they make better decisions than the pilot, because a pilot, you know, you've got to consider the G's and stuff, and they can only stay in the air for so long. Like, I'm not saying that they should be replaced, but it's probably inevitable at some point in the future. Drones are going to pretty much take up all of the, you know, fighter pilot roles. Or what do you guys think?
The MQ-1 Predator, which was first introduced over the Balkans in 1990s, is a crewed aircraft. Its follow-on, the MQ-9C Reaper, is a little more sophisticated, but it's the start of something that will change warfare forever. Aircraft like the carrier-based Northrop Grumman X-47B are starting to show the true potentials of such machines. Indeed, aircraft without pilots might be the dominant weapon during the remaining decades of this century.
Yeah, I think so.
As recently as yesterday, Navy Secretary Ray Mabus told an audience that the U.S. Navy will never buy another manned strike fighter again after the F-35C.
Wow.
And if Mabus's vision comes to fruition, unmanned aircraft will give the U.S. unmatched capabilities well into the future.
I mean, there you go. You heard it from the man himself. So the F-35 is the last manned aircraft that the Navy will buy. I mean, as a fighter pilot, you probably wouldn't want to hear that because that means your job is redundant quite soon. But I think you've probably got another, what, 20, 30 years until they're phased out. Amazing video though. That thing looks deadly. Seeing that thing in the sky would be terrifying. But I guess if you could see it, you're probably not its target, are you? That video was incredible, honestly. Just pretty much crystallized my thoughts. You know, you really wouldn't want to go up against the US military. It would be, it's a losing decision. You know, just the vastness, the technology, the intelligence, the experience accrued over the years. You know, it really, really matters. Like, even though China, you know, has a very, very large military, you know, very technologically advanced as well, I don't think, based on the little that I know, I don't think they quite have the battle experience that the US has, you know, based on its involvement, you know, in the past world wars and etc. Very, very interesting video. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.